This is Ball Striking 101, and we're first going to talk about some of the things that are going to directly affect your ball striking without even hitting a golf ball. The first one is going to be your grip. The grip is the only attachment we have to the golf club, so we need to make sure that our grip is on the club correctly. And we're going to talk about three types of grips. We have a weak grip. Your hand, or the bigger part of your hand here, will actually be on the left side of the golf club for a righty, and if you're a lefty, it'll be on the right side of the golf club. For a neutral grip, we're going to get this big pad of our hand to sit on the top of the golf club more. I like to tell people when they're learning the grip, especially for men, to refer to gripping a hammer. So I always like to say, imagine this is a hammer, okay, and you have to nail something into the ground, and I want you to grip the end of that golf club as if you need to create that leverage to nail that nail into that ground. And I like to tell women to imagine you're picking up a heavy suitcase. So if you have it on the side and you're gonna pick up a heavy suitcase, you're gonna make sure that you use this part of your palm of your hand to hold on to that handle as you pick it up. So these are two great ways to make sure that you're putting a grip on that is comfortable, but is also gonna give you maximum leverage for speed and power. The mistakes that I see people make is when their hands go in two opposite ways. So if we start with our hands in front of us and we put them together like this, well, it's easy. If one hand goes one way, the other hand's gonna follow it. This is a cause and effect. This is a good thing to feel in the golf swing. People grip where one hand turns this way and one hand turns this way. As you can see, my hands aren't facing each other. So now my forearms, if one forearm moves, it's going to directly affect the other one. And because they're not the same, it's going to affect it in a negative way, and vice versa. If this is on top and this one decides to turn, it's going to make this forearm move. And the same is true when someone gets a weak grip and a strong grip. So what we want to do is make sure we match up these hands, whether we're going to be a little bit more on the weaker side, whether we're going to be in the neutral side. And what we like to look for in the neutral side is this little arrow between our thumb and our pointer finger points up towards that right shoulder, or that trail shoulder. So when you do take that normal neutral kind of grip, or I call a neutral strong grip, okay, this is the grip I use, and both of my arrows between my thumb and pointer finger are going to point to my right shoulder. In a stronger grip, which is another grip that is commonly used by good players, you don't see any players really going to weak grips. When you take a weak grip, you don't have a whole lot of wrist leverage. So stronger grips allow us for more wrist hinge and to create that lag coming down. Stronger grip, we're going to, of course, be turning the hand more over top of the club, creating a lot of cup in this lead wrist at the start. But what we want to make sure is that that right hand follows suit. So you can see how the right hand's going to go much more underneath the club. My arrows now point to the right of my shoulder. What I don't want to see, and what we commonly see, is we get a really strong left hand grip on there, and then the right hand just kind of throws itself over the top. So once again, you can see my hands are not working in coordination here. They're not together. So it's going to be really important that while we have this time where we can't hit golf balls, that we work on these key fundamentals. And the biggest one is our grip. To make sure that we set the grip up correctly every time, I like to hold the golf club right in the middle of the shaft. This ensures that the club face stays square as I put my left hand on the grip. I do this with every club, every single time. If you form routines, you'll be more consistent and repetitive when you're on the golf course. Now that I have my left hand on, my right hand has done this enough times, it's going to follow suit and it knows where to go. So by practicing getting on a correct grip, working on what functionally works for your forearms and your wrist is also very effective in figuring out, do I want to be a little stronger, a little more neutral? I wouldn't recommend going to the weak side, okay, the dark side. We want to stay on that positive side, that strong side of the grip. More players play with a strong grip. It allows for better flattening and flexion of the wrist, as well as the extension of the trail. So this is the number one factor that we're going to have you start with. Want you to repeat on a daily basis. just consistently putting that grip on correctly. The more times you put it on correctly, the less you'll think about it when you get to the golf course. The second factor we're going to talk about now is going to be setup. Once again, a very, very common mistake that people do simply because they either don't practice it or they're unsure of how to do it correctly. So I have a pitching wedge in my hand, and we're going to talk about setting up with an iron. What we like to see with irons is that our body posture, of course, stays more neutral. Our weight 50-50 even on both of our feet, and our shoulders stay pretty square. Of course, because my right hand's a little bit lower than my left on the grip, you're going to see a slight bit of tilt to my right shoulder. What we don't want to do is get set up. I see people get set up with irons and they look like this, okay? This instantly tells me you're going to try to get underneath the golf ball, which is nails on a chalkboard to me and any other golf instructor out there. When a player says, I'm trying to get underneath the golf ball, okay? Let's bust that myth right now. Getting underneath the golf ball is only going to cause you to scull it and roll it across the ground, okay? So what we're going to get into eventually is talking about that contact and how we get that ball in the air. But to help that at setup, we're going to make sure we start nice and square with our body posture. We have that good grip on here, and we're getting into a good neutral setup without too much tilting one way or the other. Now, the main difference in setup here is going to be when we switch to a club like our driver. So as we switch to the driver, the main difference is this. I always tell people when the ball sits on the ground, we have to make sure we're hitting down. And when the ball is up on a tee, we have to make sure we're swinging up to hit it off of that tee. And this goes true with driver. Because the ball is teed up, we are going to be in a little bit wider stance. We want to kind of maximize, again, that athleticism, making sure that we are under control, supporting the weight of our body so that we can make this very athletic movement, making sure we're swinging this golf club, this driver, nice and fast. And right away, as you can see, the ball positions forward, my body tilt, my spine here, my center is going to tilt back. What this is going to do is this is going to create that angle of attack that I want to hit that golf ball on. So when I want to hit higher drives, I want to create a good bit of tilt in my body posture. When I don't want to hit as high drives, I try to set up a little more neutral, a little more like an iron, and that's going to change the angle of attack in the way we're going to hit it. So just by setting up, creating that tilt, when I create that tilt, I'm also going to feel about 60% of my weight into my right leg at address, different from the irons. Irons 50-50, driver 60-40. We want to make sure that we're staying in this tilt as we're coming into driver. One of the common issues I see is people, they get set up correctly, they start swinging, and all of a sudden the body and the spine's tilting the wrong way. In order to launch this ball correctly, we have to learn how to create good side tilt and side bend so that when we're coming in to hit driver, we're in the correct position, behind the ball, launching it, hitting it on the way up. So these are two huge fundamentals that we want to work on while we're inside. Practice that grip. You can practice it while sitting on the couch, watching a game. You can get up and do your setup. Just stand there and hold these positions for 10 or 15 seconds. Wiggle your shoulders, bounce around on your feet. Feel that athleticism from the ground up. This is going to benefit your ball striking as much as hitting golf balls will. So this is Ball Striking 101, grip and setup, and we're going to move on to striking the golf ball.